This episode of Shaped is brought to you by Easy Mobile, exclusive to Chemist Warehouse. These holidays, staying connected matters more than ever. From the 1st of December 2025 to the 3rd of February 2026, you'll get double the data on selected 5G plans for the first 6 recharges. Enjoy unlimited calls and texts, Aussie-based support, and better value mobile with no lock-ins. Find Easy Mobile at Chemist Warehouse or online at easymobile.com.au. Selected plans only. Terms and conditions apply.
I used to get really funny about people, reflecting on my netball career and calling me a netballer when I'm like, I'm not anymore, but I didn't know what I actually was.
Bianca Chatfield, very excited to have you on Shaped. Now, for people who don't know your journey, we will delve into that, but I want to introduce you as an Aussie Diamonds and Vixens champion, leadership powerhouse. Is that fair?
Yeah, well, definitely.
I love seeing people get really uncomfortable in their seat.
Passionate about it.
Educator,
Powerhouse.
commentator, author, and probably, I would assume, most importantly, a mum.
Yep, that's very true.
So welcome to Shaped.
Thanks for having me.
Really looking forward to this chat. I know that it's going to be very much about the highlights and obviously the things that have impacted your life to date and who you are today. But it's not just about that. It's also about the doubts, the setbacks, the confronting moments that have really shaped or defined who you are today. And I'm looking forward to delving into that. So thank you very much for giving us some of your time.
No problems. Do you know what? I have listened to quite a few of your eps actually, and I love the way that you take it into a different place, that there's always conversations that come out that you probably weren't expecting.
No.
And I keep thinking about how that's going to sound for me and what that might look like, but I'm ready for it.
Is there anywhere you want to start?
Ooh, now that's wherever you like, to be honest.
Well, where we do like to start is childhood.
Yep.
Take me into the Chatfield household. Growing up, where was it?
Mm-hmm.
Family?
So I grew up on the Mornington Peninsula.
Not a bad place to grow up.
Yeah, it was pretty good. So started in a place in Somerville was where we were. My mum and dad, my dad was a builder around the peninsula, and I've got 2 sisters. So an older sister who's 2.5 years older than me, Natalie, and a younger sister who's 11 years younger, Carly. So it was an interesting dynamic, and I feel like I kind of had 2 parts of my childhood. One where it was just me as the younger sibling, and then a second part where it was me very much as the middle child of the family, and having a little sister, but I very much followed my older sister, and we were sporty, yes, but my parents were just really encouraging us always to be outside, and we had horses on our property, and we were very much into horse riding. And, then occasionally we'd play basketball if our friends did. And then it eventually navigated into netball, but it was very much playing whatever, whenever. And definitely being at schools. I went to Somerville Primary School, but then went to Flinders College
That's
for
all
secondary
girls,
school.
yes?
No, co-ed.
Is it co-ed?
But it's a really small independent school where sport wasn't necessarily the focus either, but you just did everything. There was about 40 kids in a year level. So you were, yes, playing netball, yes, basketball, but athletics, you do everything, swimming, you do everything. And I actually really look back on that fondly, that you had to have a crack because they needed people basically to fill out sports teams. And I was the sporty kid anyway. So here I was trying everything, and it wasn't really that big of a deal that, you were getting better and better at, certain sports as you were growing up.
At what point did you choose netball, or did netball choose you?
Yeah, I probably say netball chose me. My older sister was very much a driving force in that decision because we both played basketball, and I'm just so competitive. And I really probably benefited of having an older sister who was almost navigating the pathway for me. And she would do well, and I'd see her get all this acknowledgement for doing well. And I'm like, right, if she can do that, I'm better and I can be better. And so I used to use that so much. I'd compete against her outside, and it was mainly basketball to start with. And then she started playing netball with her friends, and I was just this annoying little kid who did not want to sit on the sidelines watching her play on a weekend. I had tried my hand at gymnastics, and my height really didn't help because naturally both my parents are very tall. So I've ended up 6'2", and trying to do the bars as a gymnast where my feet would hit the ground.
Not ideal.
Not ideal.
I mean, it helps.
Certainly not the core strength to be able to hold my legs up. So eventually I found myself with my friends playing netball, and it was actually where I, started to feel like I really got confidence about being out there and having height, and how that was such an asset to be out in the netball court or basketball court with height. So one thing when I was at school, I always remember, your height was something everyone always talked about. And not that I definitely times was I self-conscious about it, because all your friends are little and you're hunching over trying to be like them, and you don't fit into any of their clothes. And I always remember, just as soon as I found sport and where height was my asset, I really grew into myself and was like, I love this here. And it became an environment where I felt like I really did belong. And so that really helped me want to do the training and be around that, because it was just a place I felt good.
It's interesting how those kind of moments start to impact a sense of feeling, and this feels good, that doesn't feel as good, so I'm going to gravitate towards that. You touched on environments and the sporting environment being a place you felt really at home and most confident. You also touched on your older sister and the impact that she had. Was there anyone else in your younger years outside of mum and dad that had a really significant impact on the journey that was ahead?
It was probably not until, I was just never aspirational around, I want to play for Australia. That was never part of my mindset. I never knew it was really possible. I hadn't seen anyone do it. And netball wasn't visible on TV where you could really see it all the time either. Yeah. So very much my sister played that role for me, because, she would look up and see that there was a test match between Australia and New Zealand at 11 p.m. at night on the ABC, and she would want to stay up and watch it. And I remember just kind of doing it because that's what she was doing, and she got to stay up late. So I was like, okay, great, I'll do that too. Yeah. So that was kind of my only visibility on netball. So it wasn't until I got a bit older that I think, there was a specific coach, Joyce Brown, for me, that became such an influence on my career. But the way she looked out for me and the way she cared for me and the way she pushed me, even today, she's the first person to ring and have a crack at me about something I might say in the commentary. Do you know that? Is that accurate, Bianca? And likewise, when you're going through a tough time or something, she's the first one to be like, are you okay? And, she's now in her mid to late 80s and still a great mate of mine. But it was when I first met her, I was a 16-year-old and trying to do my VCE down at Flinders College. And she was coaching Melbourne Phoenix, but which was Melbourne Vixens, but Melbourne Phoenix at the time. And she had an opening for a young defender. And my sister was also part of that group. So she was a shooter and I was a defender down the other end. And Natalie was behind players like Eloise Southby and Sherelle McMahon. And in the defensive end, they'd had a player leave and one who was pregnant, and they needed just a young kid to bring into the training environment. And so that's when Joyce said to Mum, why don't you bring Bianca into training as well? And I'd played in junior state teams at this stage, but she was very much a force of nature. When you're at training, you would get an absolute rocket if you'd done the wrong thing or if you hadn't, committed to the task. And she really had this culture of excellence. But then it was all the little things that she did behind the scenes that I just had no idea about. She was ringing my VCE coordinator while I was at school to make sure I was on top of everything, like a bit of a well-being check. And Bianca can't be driving an hour at night to training and home if she's not up to date with everything, because school's just important as her sporting career, and you've got to have both. So yes, she's played a huge part of my life like that. No matter what's really happened.
Does it make you appreciate, and has it influenced the way that you now have either nurtured younger players coming into the system or in your capacity as a leadership and mentor in the way that you do things now? Because I think, and there'll be a question later on that I ask, which I'm going to leave. Actually, I'm going to ask it now.
Okay.
You've had an amazing journey. And speaking specifically from a leadership point of view, is there a moment or a story that you're most proud of that nobody really got to see? Because to me, that's where the greatest form of leadership actually happens. Like, you can be an amazing leader and do the great act on court or on field or in a meeting, in a business sense. But it's all the little things that require huge energy, great emotional intelligence, and just an awareness
Mm.
from my own experiences that probably have the greater impact that aren't spoken about.
Yes. It's hard to pinpoint a specific time. Like, personally, when I was challenged throughout my career, so I was dropped from the Aussie team in 2010 before the Com Games in India. And I'd been in the team for about 7 years prior to that. I say we lost the gold medal game. We got a silver in Melbourne at the Com Games, and it was kind of this big journey with the Diamonds to then be able to rectify it and get that gold medal in India. And so in the lead up, for me, and this is in hindsight, I look at it and, I didn't expect to be in that team, but I thought that I'd done enough to make that team. And I then went through the very humbling experience of getting dropped before the Com Games. So I think it was about January, and Com Games might have happened in March. And I remember just, all the emotions in that moment. It was a bit like survival. We were up at the AIS and they had the selection camp, and it was 5 days of all the brutal, testing and even playing against each other and, trying to work out who was the top 12 that were going. And so
leading into that, did you think you were a shoo-in?
I didn't think I was a shoo-in because I would never felt comfortable at that Aussie level. Yeah. At Melbourne, I felt comfortable. I knew I had great relationships with the coaches. I was more intimidated by the Aussie coach, and I just never knew where I stood with her.
Yeah.
I was, behind some great players as well. And so I thought I was good enough to make the 4, but I absolutely didn't think that I was definitely in the team. And when you just feel the writings on the wall, I just had moments where I was looking around at people and could almost, I was just watching and seeing all the signs during that selection camp that, maybe they're looking at me to not put in the team, and the different combinations they were putting out there on court. And then you're like, so-and-so hasn't even looked at me today. And you just overanalyze everything. And so we go through and they get you in this room and they read the team out in alphabetical order, and my name wasn't on there. And so then it was very much like Survivor. It's just, you had to get yourself up, you had to get yourself to the airport, you had to fly yourself home, and the rest of the team stayed in Canberra to keep training. So I just remember being at the airport and wanting to be on my own, not wanting to be around anybody else, just to try and figure out what I was going through. And of course, Joyce was one of the first people that I called. Like, once I'd rung my parents, and you kind of like sucking up the tears going, I haven't made it. And you feel like you're letting everyone down, and everyone had planned to maybe come across to Delhi to come to the games. And so you're going through all of that. And then I was just like, I just wanted to shut myself off from the world, and spoke to Joyce. And I don't even remember what she said to me, but I just remember it was pretty much a few words, let's just leave it, I'll talk to you next week. Because she kind of knew, I think, I had to go through this process. And I remember I was coming home in the plane and I was just reading the paper for something to do. And interestingly, Jason Ackermanis had he'd just gone to Bulldogs and been dropped from Bulldogs at this time. And he'd written an article in the Herald Sun, and he was scathing towards the Bulldogs and basically what they had done, how, basically blaming everybody else but him. And it was actually a very good time to read it. It was almost like, these things happen for a reason. I'm reading that and I'm like, ugh, I do not want to sound bitter and twisted.
Like that.
Sorry, Akka. But because I could have, I felt like getting on Twitter at the time, which was the thing everyone was using, and just, I think I wanted to put out a tweet, and I thought it was very clever that, like, diamonds really aren't a girl's best friend. I just thought, I'm going to do that, and thought I was so clever.
Don't mind
and
that.
Something in me was just restraining me from doing it. And so that was a real pivotal time in my career personally, because, over the next 6 months, I went through all the stuff and, figuring out and why I didn't get in the team. Yes, I had to be fitter. Mentally, I needed a break. My body was broken. And I just wasn't the best player that I could have been at that time. But what I'm most proud of is probably how I resurrected myself in that moment. Not, yes, as a player and what I could do out on court from that moment on, but what the sport meant to be and what was really important in the sport for me was probably the biggest telling part of my career, and why I'm so interested in the leadership space now was around going through that gave me such a big insight into what it's like as an athlete being on the other side when things don't go your way. I spent a lot of time where I had to learn how to be on the bench and be okay with that too, and be resilient in that time, even when you're part of the team and you're still going through the highs, but having to deal with that. So I felt like I became a much more well-rounded leader because I understood and had empathy for people who were on the fringe of the team, who might not be getting court time, who might have just been dropped. And I enjoyed from that moment on. So I played from 2010, got back in the Australian team at the end of 2011, kind of fought my way back in. There was a changing coach. I was much better at having honest conversations, that I was just happy to lay everything out on the line, and this attitude of take me or leave me.
Was there a particular way that you crafted those honest conversations, or was it literally, I just need to get this off my chest?
Yeah, I think I used to just hide away from it and not want to have those conversations.
Which is a heavy weight to carry.
Totally. And just always think, I'm just going to brush things over. It'll be fine. Like, you know.
Did anyone help you with the technique to have those conversations, or was it just something you developed over time? As we talk about the importance of connection and community, it's a good reminder that this time of year is all about staying close to the ones you love most. That's why Shaped is proudly supported by Easy Mobile, exclusive at Chemist Warehouse. From December 1st, 2025 to February 3rd, 2026, you'll get double the data on selected 5G plans for the first 6 recharges. Enjoy unlimited calls and texts, Aussie-based support, and better value mobile with no lock-ins. Grab a SIM at Chemist Warehouse or activate a free eSIM at easymobile.com.au online. Selected plans only, terms and conditions apply.
No, I think it was the belief in myself and trusting myself, to be honest. Because
knowing that it was good for you, effectively.
Yeah, that's right. And the fear of what the answer might be, you know, I guess was so minimal compared to when you actually had the conversation, how good you felt after it. So the Australian coach who'd come in was Lisa Alexander, and I remember I could have not I could have not gone back into that Aussie environment. I'd already been to a Com Games, been to a World Champs. I could have easily just walked away from that. But I remember she'd taken over and she had said, meet me in South Yarra near the Tan. And we went to a cafe there, and she said, okay, this is it. I want you in the team. I want you in the squad. I'm not promising you that I'm going to pick you in the team, but I want you there because of your experience, what you bring to the squad. But I want you to actually want to be there. I don't want you to do it just because you want to resurrect your career and make the starting 7 and, you know, change your destiny. But I know that at your very best, you are going to add so much value to this squad. And I just laid it out to her on the line that I just did not want to be training fodder. I only want to be here if you actually believe in me and that you actually think that I can get the job done in the team. And she said, I promise you, I'm not, you know, just having you here just because we need some extra numbers until the next young ones come through. So, you know, I got back in that side, and I then became vice captain of the Diamonds, and the leadership part of my game became something that I was really driven to make sure, you know, that I added value, but I also wanted to learn in this leadership space. My role as captain in the Melbourne Vixens, we had this up and coming group of young girls who are now all the dominant ones for the Diamonds in this current day. But, you know, I enjoyed seeing them do so well out on court as opposed to what I could do. My job of going out there and being a defender and stopping my opponent, I could do that. But where I got the most joy was watching these young girls do things for the first time and experience things. And I really spent so much time with them, getting so much energy from these young players, because I had just loved it. Their world was so simple and they hadn't been jaded by all the things that can happen in sport and all the negativity. And I really just... it gave me this positive kind of silver lining for everything that I'd been through, that I could now, still grateful that I could play at that top level, but actually find the joy in it rather than always the competitiveness of trying to be the best and almost individually burning yourself. Is it fair to say that,
kind of call them phase 1 and phase 2 of your career, did you pretty much go from the I to we focus? Like, very much phase 1 was about me getting the best out of myself to help the team.
Yes.
And that was the thinking, but you were probably always inside of yourself or in your head.
Totally.
Which is hard.
Yep.
Because I had exactly the same experience. And then phase 2 is you come out the other side where you find joy and happiness and energy from seeing others do really well. And naturally your performance stays the same or may even improve and get better. But you have this holistic part where you're getting fuel from every different angle.
Yeah, absolutely. And the I part in that phase one, as you say, I loved being a part of a team sport. Like I loved that no matter what you're about to do, you always had people with you. Like I think of tennis players and you know, athletes and runners, like what they do on their own to constantly keep coping and how resilient they are to keep pushing themselves. Like, you know how we always talk about individual athletes being absolutely different characters to what we are in team sport. And I admire how they can do that on their own. I would never have enjoyed it, I don't think.
Yeah.
Being in the battle with
some
just
form
myself.
of self-imploding.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I really love the team element. And I was always considered, I guess, a leader. You know, in junior teams, I was, had captaincies, but it was probably because I was confident in using my voice, but it was not probably because of the real authentic, soulful stuff that I believe leadership is. And that's what phase two for me was my career.
Is there a particular analogy or theme that you now educate people on that you think is most important to leadership?
Oh, for me, it was the connection part. And, like I said about that empathy and understanding what it's like to be in other people's shoes, but just really putting the time and effort into building relationships with people that you're in a team with, support stuff included, not just, the direct players that are out there with you, and just learning little things about each other. When I first made the Australian team, that was not what the culture was like. And you always felt like you were a bit on your own. And, I made the Aussie team firstly when I was 18 and I was really just this young kid. But I felt so intimidated by everyone else in that team and how they were and how it was just kind of, you were just there just to fill numbers. No one ever really cared about me, nor did I want to open myself up to them either. But that very much is where I think the real gold is that understanding, whether it is in business and you're managing a team, you're just taking time away from what people's position description may look like, the job that they're meant to do, and actually understanding about them and what makes them tick and what worries them. And I think that's just such a easy thing for people to be able to do that makes a huge difference.
Do you think maybe more so in business, and I'm just asking a question completely off the top of my head, for someone who naturally progresses into a leadership position in business as compared to sport, normally it's someone who has kind of excelled, then goes, oh yeah, we see them as a leader as well, we're going to give them a title as such, or they're going to play a role from a leadership perspective in the team. They haven't necessarily faced the adversity because they're always been one of the top players and maybe have been lucky and fortunate, haven't had injury, so they don't necessarily have that experience where they go, oh, so-and-so is going through this, so I can't have the empathy that they're going through. Whereas business, you probably have progressed to a point where, you've had to put in the hours, you've had to punch the spreadsheets that are the boring, monotonous kind of jobs, but that's just part of the pathway.
Yep.
Do you think they have a better understanding of that, or still similar to sport, it's kind of like, I've excelled at my role, I've progressed to this position, and now I kind of really don't give a shit about what maybe someone's feeling?
I think it depends on people's personalities too, because some people don't want to take on other people's energy or issues, or they don't want to take the time to understand that. Maybe a lot of the times
it can be heavy, can't it?
It can be. It's like that, when you ask someone, how are you? You've got to be ready for whatever the answer is, whether it's good or bad. And quite often we tokenly just go, yeah, I'm good. And then we go on with that day. But if someone actually says, no, I'm not, like, you've asked the question, so you have to be there for what's to come next. So I just think a lot of people are time poor, that potentially they don't see the value of having a 2-minute conversation with someone at the start of the day just to check in, or, reminisce about one thing that they might have done on the weekend that they told you about, to ask them how that was. It's the little things rather than big time, energy that people need to invest in. It's really the tiny things that can make the big difference. So I think it really depends on the situation, the type of person you are. And I mean, how great if you've never had any
no setbacks,
bit of adversity
how
and
good.
You haven't had to worry.
Well, there's people out there that have not faced
Imagine that.
The highlight reels are great from a sporting point of view and life, but what's been the toughest moment of your life so far?
Toughest moment of my life. Do you know what? I feel very fortunate that I haven't had a lot of tough, really serious tough moments in my life. Sure, you've got your sporting career and the roller coaster ride that all of it is. That is a hard one to think about.
What
I
about
think because my
sorry, go on.
perspective on it is when obviously it's not a great thing to compare to other people, but when I, see what other people have had to experience and endure, and I feel fortunate that I haven't had to go through, any.
Have you naturally always been that way? Like that's provided you with perspective, therefore I can move forward?
I think so. And I like to try and, always see a silver lining or be a bit of an optimist in that whatever's happening, either someone's in a worse position than me or there has to be a way through this. Like, where is the kind of solution? And yes. So I feel like I really should be able to come up with things that have been tough, but I think I brush it away because I'm a bit like, compared to other people, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. No, I get that. That's fine. Has there been a time in your playing days where you questioned your self-worth and whether you should continue on? Was that the moment after not being selected, or was there other times?
No, I think there's definitely been times. That was a big moment.
Yeah.
I assume I would be similar to you in that, I love pushing myself and challenging myself and achieving things. And I think when you are not on that trajectory or things are going the other way and you can't see a way, or you're trying to figure out, how do I do this next big thing? That's when I feel like I struggle the most to get myself out of that rut. Even though other people looking in at what I'm doing probably don't agree that I'm in that position. But for me, I'm very ambitious and I've been always wanting to push the boundaries. And, even when I was finishing up with my netball career, I was very ready to retire. And I was very much like, I don't just want to do what everyone does. I want to do things differently, and even challenging myself in that way. And even taking on things like going into commentary for netball. I enjoyed the media space. I love the adrenaline rush you got from being on live TV, that it was similar to when you are an athlete. But there was something in my head that was like, that's what everyone does, goes into commentary. Don't do that. Do something else, or be a much more well-rounded person. And so then I was constantly putting pressure on myself to do other things too. And I think that's been probably my biggest, issue or rut that I can get myself in, is that I'm trying to do too many things at once.
I'm hearing you.
And I'm not nailing anything as much as I would like to. So then you do feel like a complete failure, but you're not,
Yeah.
The perspective
you're still
on that.
progressing, but you don't feel like you're progressing in the way that you could.
Yes. And that's...
I feel your pain.
Yes, I know. And isn't it frustrating that you I know from the outside it doesn't look like this, but here inside I'm really like, what's the next thing I can do? What is it? Where am I actually going to keep fueling this burning desire I have deep down, my competitive spirit to do something?
I love it. You spoke of being ready to retire. Did it come with a sense of relief, fear, grief, or another emotion?
Definitely not grief. I'd played in the 2014 Com Games. We'd won a gold medal. We'd won the premiership with Vixens in that year as well. So it was a bit like everything was just turned out amazing. The highlights reel. Certainly have that at the forefront, what happened in 2014. But I really wanted 1 year where I was just playing with Vixens and could give that my whole time without having to worry about Aussie stuff on my head. So in my head, that was my plan. At the very end of 2014 at Com Games, I could barely get myself right to be able to play a full game. And we're used to playing, a full game once a week. And at a Com Games, you've got to back up every second day. So I think I was 33 and my body was really had enough. My knee, I'd had plenty of scopes on my knee, and it was just lots of hard work to get myself up to play. And I never wanted to be that burden on a team where I was hardly training and just getting out there and playing the matches. And so once I got to the end of 2014, I was like, okay, 1 more year, and then I'm excited to go, excited to be able to put more time into other things. And, I'm actually really appreciative of the sport in netball in that, don't get me wrong, I would have loved to have had the contracts that you would have had in terms of financial reward for what you're doing as an athlete. But what I love that taught me was that kind of entrepreneurial spirit that you need. You had to have 3 or 4 different other jobs on the side when I first started. And towards the end of my netball career, I could be a professional athlete and, with your endorsements. And I love that. But I was always ready to do other things too and put my brain to work and challenge myself. So I was excited to get to the end where I could have more time, and I wasn't always going, oh, sorry, I've got netball, I've got training, I've got this, I've got that. And I was, just ready to do other things and not hurt my body and get to a Monday and be like, what can we inject into my knee to make it feel better? I just wanted to
It's a very real
be fresh.
challenge though, right? For,
Yep.
I mean, across all codes of
Yes.
sport and life, probably to that extent. Since retiring, like, did you find yourself excited, ready for the next part? Can't wait to wrap my hands around a few things that I've got interests in, but then kind of go, oh shit, my structure's kind of gone and I feel a little bit lost.
Yes. I was definitely like that. The
Yep.
structure part was, it just keeps you under control, is that you always know where you're going. And it was, the big thing was actually like the medical staff, not having the medical staff to help you with your body every single day. And so as much as they want to continue to help and support you, it's just not having those resources. And I really learned a lot about my body in that if I did not train or did not do anything, my knee would be terrible.
Yeah.
If I did too much, my knee would be terrible. And so I had to find that happy medium. I had to keep up, going to the gym. I couldn't just let myself go. As what you think, oh, great, I don't have to train. But I realized how beneficial that was for me to keep some
both
kind of
physically
structure.
and mentally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually opened an F45 down in Mornington.
Yeah.
Not long after I'd retired. So that kind of was good to keep me.
How did it go?
How did it go?
Or how is it going?
Oh,
I
I don't have it anymore. No, but we had it for about a couple of years. And I loved it because it really, in a sense, gave me that connection to community in a different way, somewhere to be as well. I've got a human movement degree, so I would take classes too. And I really enjoyed that environment of having that as just one little, project on the side. But I also think the identity thing of, I used to get really funny about people, reflecting on my netball career and calling me a netballer when I'm like, I'm not anymore, but I didn't know what I actually was. Like, how do you summarize what you are when you're doing a bit of here and a bit there and a little bit there? And people would say, oh, you're a media presenter now. And I'm like, oh, am I? I don't know. Like, it just, everything felt uncomfortable because I've been so used to just being called a netballer and being okay with that. Whereas now I was just struggling to find how you define what you do.
How do you define what you do now?
Well, now I've realized that
because I still don't know.
I don't need a definition.
Good.
And it confuses everybody else, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
That some days I'm working in the leadership space. Some days it's media. Some days it's mum life. Some days it's whatever is thrown at me.
I've had to shift the way that I think people perceive that, which is where I think my struggle came with. It's kind of like, oh, yeah, I do this, this, and this, kind of roll off 5 things. But now I'm kind of like, well, I'm in a privileged position where I do get to do 5 different jobs, or roles. So yeah, it's,
and also like what we learn with that.
Yeah,
you get very used to the ebbs and flows of what could come with that. Sometimes you're really busy, sometimes you're not. And being able to kind of accept that situation you're in because you love the flexibility of that lifestyle. And I am so grateful for that. My partner, Mark, he has pretty much been, in a full-time sort of role, and he gets very stressed out about the way I live my life, but I feel like it's a real natural way. And I've never been in a 9-to-5 everyday job, and I don't know how I would cope with that, to be honest.
I often think about it and I'm like, maybe for 2 or 3 days a week.
Yeah.
Someone telling me what to do. But no, you're right. I'm very grateful for the way that I have my world structured at the moment. Since retiring, have you had one or a couple of aha moments that have kind of just gone, wow, like now I've realized either what I'm supposed to be doing or...
The aha moments have probably been, when I am during a netball season and I'm working on the commentary and I've, had to learn to call the games as well as, host it. And I've loved the challenge of that. But being connected to the sport in that way, and that's okay. Not having to be in depth in a team environment. I haven't gone back and done specialist coaching. I haven't, I've had people ask me to go in and do that. And I've really been hesitant about entrenching myself into a team, whereas the commentary has provided me this beautiful connection with the game still and being a part of it all, but also being able to leave it on a weekend and not think about it until I'm prepping for the next game that I'm doing.
It's a nice feeling, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's, again, a very privileged position, but I've loved that. I certainly stay off social media because I don't care what people think about our commentary because people can be quite savage.
Do you have any tips? Because that is something that, everyone effectively deals with today. Do you have any tips for young girls or boys that are receiving unfair and untrue feedback on social media?
Well, I actually learnt this from doing reality TV, doing The Block in 2018.
I'm looking forward to talking about
my
that.
best mate, Carla. So, I mean, netball, compared to footy, we would not get scrutinised as much as you do at all, right? When just not as much in the public eye. And so my experience in netball, I never really had to worry too much about that. But what I learned from doing reality TV is if you're going looking through all the comments to find the good, you've got to be prepared for the bad. So I just can't enter that vortex. And what drives me insane is when people who know you screenshot what they read and send it to you. Like they think it's funny. And I'm just like, I'm trying to avoid not going there. So for me, it's just don't go there. Like if I post something, I generally post it and I just leave it. I'd never go back into it to have a look at it.
It's very disciplined.
Well, yes. And I'm very, I guess protective of what I do with that. But then I admire people who are so open and have their whole lives on social media. I just couldn't do that, which is kind of a bit of a contradiction considering what you choose to do as job. Most things are quite public, but I just can't go down that rabbit hole of looking at it.
Wrapping up retirement, if you could go back and whisper something in your ear the day you retired that was going to help you moving forward, what would it be?
Just trust your gut. I think athlete life certainly taught me a lot about you've got to believe in yourself. You can't expect anybody else to believe in you if you don't believe in yourself. And very much when you can get, there's lots of noise around you, whether it's what you want to do or aspire to do, and you have people maybe loving or hating that idea. Just if you truly believe that it's got a place and you want to put your energy and time into it, then it will work out in some way, shape or form. I can be a bit spiritual in that way. Like I really love just that real belief and finding that and trusting that it will open up in some way when it's meant to.
If someone is lacking a belief or confidence, do you have any exercises or suggestions that can help them kind of go on a journey?
Well, I think the first thing is being able to acknowledge what you're good at, like what you're proud of. Being able to actually say nice things to yourself, because too much in their head we're picking on all the things we're not
100%.
good at. We wish we would change. And, a toxic trait I would often get into when I was an athlete was around comparing myself to other people and other people in my position who I was competing against to make a team. I'd be like, she's fitter, she's stronger, she can do this better. And so then I would try and change my whole training program to be like what their body needs and not what my body needed. Yeah. And I wish if I had gone a step back and told my, young athlete self that, like, just stay in your own lane. Like, you're okay where you are, rather than always trying to be like everybody else or aspire to get their results.
You spoke of Mark, and we were talking before we started the show about how he's very particular with certain things, one being stacking the dishwasher. You're not allowed to stack the dishwasher at home?
Not allowed to.
Stay in your lane?
Stay in my lane. I thought I was a very organised person until I met Mark, my partner, and he comes from a army, police force background and
military style.
He's extremely organised. To the point before he even goes to bed. I don't know if you watched that David Beckham documentary where David was like, before they all go to bed, he has to go around the kitchen, make sure everything's in order. That is what Mark's like for me. And little things that I find, like last night I left the heater on. And so he got home after me and he's just like, oh, you left the heater on. I'm like, oh gosh, like something so simple. I should have turned it off. But he's like making sure everything's off, making sure the doors are locked. And I appreciate that because it's less load that I have to worry about. But yeah, he really shows me up in that way.
Oh, it is about
like all good relationships, right?
Strengths and weaknesses all come together.
Exactly.
Got to support each other on the journey. Speaking of relationships and healthy ones, what do you think are some of the most important parts to having one that is healthy?
Healthy.
Sorry, yes.
Well, communication, yes, definitely. But when things aren't going well, like being able to find a way to have that conversation that is at a productive time, not just when it might suit you, but also being aware of where your partner is at and how they're feeling and when to actually have some of those trickier conversations. Having fun together, like we act like we're 18 years old, and I really love that. Gets us out of our own heads.
Sense of play.
Yeah, definitely. And just what I'm really feel grateful for is that Mark and I are very much, and not, I guess, traditional roles of what a male or female would play in a relationship, in that we are very 50-50 in what we do. And he's very much a parent that is, with our daughter just as much as I am. And, he works, yes, full time, but we move around and maneuver our lives to make sure that both of us have the ability to be able to work full time and also be at home and, make those sacrifices for each other.
You spoke of your daughter, Kaya.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure I said that okay. Having her, has that changed the way that you see the world? Have you gone back to your own experiences as a little girl and gone, there were some things that happened in my life that I don't want to be the same, or that I do want to be the same?
Yes, definitely. I mean, there's nothing like parenthood to really be like a real reflection to, what you did. And I think growing up, I was always like, not secretive, but I would always keep a lot to myself and I wouldn't share it. A fear of, I don't know, having to have a tricky conversation or being yelled at or whatever it might be. And I really want to make sure with my daughter that I am always that calm parent for her, that no matter what happens, no matter what she goes through, no matter what she wants to talk about, that I am this calm person who won't react necessarily straight away in the moment, that she can feel like she can always have a conversation to me. And it wasn't like my parents weren't like that for me, but I just always remembered sometimes it was easier just to not say anything, or just to not, venture down that path for fear of what might come back. Or, you don't want to learn the lesson because you think you're too good for that at the time. So definitely that is something that I always am mindful with her. And I mean, she's only 3, so we're only very much in the start of our parenting life. But the other thing is just, yes, the value that sport has played in my life, and I'm not talking about elite sport because she can do whatever she wants to do, but I definitely want her to be involved in sport and play team sport, especially when she's young and as a girl going through her teenage years, to give her that connection to something else other than what she might have at school. And just the great things that you learn about yourself being a part of a team and the respect you have for each other and your coach. And I just would love her to experience what team sport and the fun of it. And I've got nothing about me wants her to be an elite athlete. If she wants to, great. But it's just more about, I loved playing sport because it took me away from being bored on a weekend and, experimenting with drugs and alcohol when I was a teenager, because I was too into sport and didn't want to, feel bad when I was trying to come to a game on a Sunday morning.
Is there anything in the world you see today that you're scared the shit out of for Kaya?
I mean, I think social media and just, the horrific stories that you read, even like the way AI plays a role in kids now communicate with AI as if it's a friend online, and you have zero control around what that's feeding back to kids. So I think there's so many horrific stories out there. So I think it is more online and what that online world will present. I don't even think we really have an understanding of when they're older what it's going to look like to try and counteract that. But I think knowledge is power. So I think it's up to us as parents to always make sure that we've got some understanding of what's happening anyway, and be aware of what you might be able to do to help.
You touched on your height through your childhood being something that made you feel maybe not as confident or comfortable as what other kids may have in your circle of friends. Was there any other wounds or insecurities from your own childhood that you're really conscious of either not passing on or protecting Kaya from, or anyone in your network?
Well, she'll definitely have the height.
Yeah.
And so I think if I reverse engineer how that would look, I am protective of her because everyone wants to have a conversation with her as a 3-year-old in the park about how tall she is. But I also don't want to project how
Are you jumping in all the time?
What was that?
Are you jumping in that
I'm
conversation?
Just like, Just like her mum.
Yeah.
Like
Leave her alone.
Yes. Yes, she's tall. No, she's not 6. All of that jazz. Yeah, so I think I just want her to embrace it, and that's easier said than done. But at the moment, she's got no understanding of that. But, friends will go and measure their kids up against her who might be 2 years older, and they're like, oh,
What's
she's
it even
already taller
matter?
than our son. And you're like, who cares? Does it matter? But I just always remember height being a front of mind conversation no matter where I was. And I think for, athletes like Liz Cambridge and Lauren Jackson, who are taller than me, just to think how much that would have been their conversation that they were having no matter where they were as well. So yes, trying not to be judgmental about how people look or appear is something that I'm trying to be quite proactive with.
Life experiences now and purpose and passion, where are you finding you want to spend most of your time outside of family, obviously?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you finding yourself wanting to spend the most amount of time? And that's not to say it's not your favorite, but it's just something that you're really driven towards.
Well, when I am working in the leadership space, I just feel this real soulful enjoyment in the work and working with people and helping people problem solve their way through whatever they might be going through. So, and that's, how we caught up the other day, just really now that I know that I love that and I do work in businesses with it, but it's more about going back into that sporting environment, I think, and working with a team directly on their leadership is what I see myself in the future going into. When that happens and when, time allows it to, that's when I'm intrigued with, what you do with the Lions and just being that support for a group that are, elite performers and what that looks like. And yeah, I really feel like that's my trajectory going forward.
And if people were looking for engaging in some of the leadership consulting stuff that you do or mentoring, where do they find you?
You can find me on socials or I've got a
You have
website
a website
that's just my name. So
it's pretty easy to find then.
Pretty accessible.
I'm going to go into a little bit of quick fire.
Okay.
Because I don't want to take up too much more of your time.
No, you're right.
What's a belief that you once had that you had to let go of?
What used to drive me a lot was, like, if it's to be, it's up to me. And that did help me and serve a purpose for a while, and that, I'm in control of my destiny and all that. But it's also a very selfish way of looking at things, and to allow, the support in from other people that can really help you and guide you, and being okay with that, not feeling like you're a burden on others. That has been a big, just a shift that you don't have to do everything on your own. And a lot of my career, I was single as well. And I think I liked that because I could control so much of what I was doing. And I remember when I first met Mark, I actually randomly had cut my thumb and I had to have surgery because I'd cut the tendon. And I couldn't do anything with one hand. So I was just, moping around because I'd gone through this surgery after cutting my thumb. And I just remember he grabbed me and he was like, we're a team. I'm here to help you. And I really found that hard to relinquish control of what I'd been able to do, like, myself, and let him help me.
Yeah.
And it was a big kind of turning point for me to be like, oh yeah, you can do that. And I think
that's when you started letting him pack the dishwasher.
Yeah, that's right. Oh. Then that was like, I can't do the dish. I'm going to cut myself with a knife, so you better do it.
I like it. Was that a Tommy Hafey quote?
I don't know. I got it from Joyce Brown, but she was close with Tommy Hafey, so it wouldn't surprise me if it was.
All interconnected somehow.
Yes.
What's a lesson life keeps trying to teach you?
Probably along the lines of slowing down and just not having to achieve all the time, not having to be always super ambitious, that it's okay to sometimes just sit in a stationary place where, you're not constantly trying to push yourself. And I think motherhood has really given me such great perspective on that, just that whole layer of emotional pull that you have to this little human being. And that if we are just sitting around playing and achieving nothing for the day other than just having fun together, then that is actually okay. And it's hard to obviously keep thinking that in the moment and like not being on your phone when you're with her. And that's constant challenge every day.
How do you define success now as compared to when you were playing?
Oh, success for me now is just being content in work that I'm doing, relationships that I have, and just having this overwhelming feeling of
Do you
being
know what the
content.
content looks like? Like, can you unpack that more deeply? Like, is content with the work you're doing, taking steps forward? And those steps might be really small, and sometimes it might be a step back to take two forward.
Yeah.
And then relationships wise, it's like making sure that you nurture the friendships.
Yes. Well, yeah. And I think for me, content looks like, if we think about it as the feeling, it's just that you're feeling like you are filling up your cup with what you're doing and getting energy from the people you're around, from the work that you're doing, from how you're showing up for your daughter and your partner and your family.
Yeah.
Just not feeling like you're being drained, I guess, is because, I feel like I've spent a lot of time in that real drained part where you feel like you're either giving so much of yourself and you're not getting it back, or you take on things that deep down is not the right thing for you to be doing. And you can tick the box and get paid for it and whatever, but you're like, is that actually really serving me? And being able to just be honest with yourself about that and know that sometimes no is far more powerful than yes.
You're talking about your day spending just quality time with Kaya reminded me just my youngest is my son, Parker. He has now become super obsessed with Ed Sheeran, like a lot of people, including me. But his favourite song's Perfect.
Yeah.
And he keeps telling me it's because, I don't know whether I told him this, but it's a song that I kind of think of my wife, Brooke, when I listen to it and sing it pretty averagely.
Cute.
But just the other night he said, can we listen to Perfect before I go to sleep? And I'm like, that's really nice. But just laying there for literally 3 minutes or however long the song goes for and looking into his eyes whilst a song that he and I both love, they're the moments where you kind of go, shit, like this is what's really important in life. And so often when I'm putting the kids to bed, it's like, once I get them to bed, it's me time and I can go and do whatever I need to do or sit on the couch and think about nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm always in a rush, but then that like stops you in the tracks, those moments where you're like extra 3 or 4 minutes with each kid, whether it's 10, 15, 20 minutes, but they're the actual moments where you're creating deeper connection.
Yes. Yesterday I took my daughter to Acro Kids, which is like gymnastics.
Yeah.
And it was the first time she was in a class where the parents weren't on the floor helping them. It was just on their own with the coach. And beforehand I was like, you've got to listen to the coach. And I just, in that moment, was like, if she looks over at me, I cannot be sitting there on my phone scrolling. I have to be watching her. And I just had this most beautiful connection with her because she would do an activity and she'd turn around and she'd be like this, like, I listened to the coach, Mum. And every single time I'd do it back to her. And I thought how easily I could have just been scrolling because I was, filling in time while she was doing the activity. And I, went home and I was telling Mark about that. I was like, we have to make more of an effort to do things like that with her because she just had the best time. And her favorite thing out of the whole thing was that she listened to the coach and that she wanted me to know that. And so I think we've got to keep reminding ourselves of those things.
Did she get on the rings by any chance?
Yeah, she got on the rings.
As in
like me.
Because you said it was a struggle for you.
Well, yes, I know. I mean, at the moment she's okay, but watch out.
What legacy do you want to leave in life? I'll break it down even further. What 3 words would you like people to talk about that relate to Bianca Chatfield and the impact she's had on the world?
I think that I was hardworking, but did it with a lot of compassion and care.
It's a nice combo.
But that I was always there for people who needed it. That's probably more than 3 words. Sorry about that.
I think you're you're executing very well on that, so keep it up.
Thanks.
What's one statement you would love Kaya to tell herself as she grows up in this world?
I mean, probably just off the back of everything, just I am enough. Whatever.
How important is that? Particularly for, actually, you know what? It shouldn't be separate because it is. Yeah, it's everyone.
Isn't that funny? I think that too. I'm thinking, especially for girls.
Yeah.
But it really.
I think there's insecurities in everyone.
100%. Yeah. I think, you're always going to doubt yourself, right? Whether you are enough or whether you're doing enough or whether you
have enough.
Have enough, look enough, whatever it is. But I think it just comes back to that real instilled belief. And I think no matter what I've gone through, I've always been able to somehow, sometimes it takes longer than other times, but somehow find that belief in myself that I can push forward, or I can, surround myself with different people that I need to. And I've been, mature enough to, I guess, find those answers. So I just hope that no matter what age she is, that she knows that there is always a way to find that kind of, to get the best out of herself.
Would you give yourself the same advice as a 15-year-old?
Definitely.
Is that the one piece of advice you'd give yourself at 15? If you could go back, knowing what's ahead?
Yep.
Is there anything else you would say?
No, probably that, and like the don't compare yourself to others, but you are enough, and you'll find your way, and it might look totally different, but that's also okay.
Was there a time where you realised you were always comparing yourself to others? And does it still poke its little head up?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think that's that competitive nature, and you always want to push. So if you see someone doing something that you want to do or better, and how can you be like that? But nobody wants you like that version anyway. I think just definitely that was all compacted in that moment when I was probably dropped from the Australian team, and then I would, the easy part is to compare your stats to other people who have been picked over you, as a real simple version, and then to realise what I actually brought to that team was different, and then understanding the leadership qualities that I could bring to a team. By the end, I'm sure I was more picked on what I brought from a leadership perspective than necessarily what damage I could do on court.
Which is a pretty special attribute to have.
Well, it's something that I'm definitely most proud of now is, yes, the premierships you can win, but just how that team and how I felt in those moments, how we felt together, and, the friendships that I have with some of the current players who are like my best mates, because,
the impact you've had on them.
We really nurtured that, and likewise with what they did for me. So, yeah, I definitely think that's, when I look back on my career, is far more important to me is what I could add value to a team than ever what I could do on court.
Well, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for spending some time with us on Shaped. You are doing an amazing job in all facets of your life, whether you're busy or having a quiet week. It's so funny. There's so much alignment in our journeys, I think, with regards to some of the thoughts that we have. So I got a lot.
Like, you two need to meet.
I got a lot out of the conversation. I'm sure that everyone listening or watching will do the same. And if anyone wants to reach out, you've got your website or socials.
Yep.
So
thanks so much, Coach. Loved it.
It was good fun.